Student, welcome you all on the behalf of Rahul Anand Biology Tutorials. So, as you know that I am Rahul Anand and this is somewhat on my channel whose name is actually the Rahul Anand Biology Tutorials. So now, let's begin with the very interesting topics which are often being asked in terms of your NEET, often the AIMS, often the All India Pre-Medical Examinations. So these are literally belonging from which of the chapters of your book? So these are belonging from the, tell me, here main of the transportation in plant. So today we are going to study about what are actually the process of transportation in plants. So these are what? So these are the here main of the osmosis, then what? Then the diffusion, often the plasmolysis, often what? Often the inhibition. Then we are often having the certain of the process such as what? Such as the transpiration pull. So today we are going to study about what? So today we are going to study about the very important topics as well as this particular in term means what are actually the diffusion. Now, so when we are talking about what are actually the diffusion, so diffusion will be what? So it is the physical process. Now, so why we are telling it the physical process? So there is the particular reason behind it. So we'll be understanding about that later. Now, primarily, but in terms of the fact when we are talking about these cases, so these are what? So these are the here main term of what? The physical process. As well as in this case, what will be happening? So in this case, the passive transportation mechanism will be employed. Now, so we are having the two mechanism of transport in terms of the passive transport as well as the active transport. As well as let's particularly quickly review means what does these literally means what are actually the transportation in plants. Often as well as understood very clearly. So when we are telling about what are actually the transportation, so it literally means what? So it means any kind of the nutritious substances as well as the fluid or either what? Or either the particular chemicals which is being radiated from one geographical region towards the another geographical region in order to maintain what? In order to healthy status living or either the standard with reference to that organism or either that living organism will be coming under from what case? So it will be coming under nothing else but the case of the transportation. Understood? Now, so when we are talking about this case means what are actually the diffusion. So in this case what will be happening? So in this case the passive transportation will be occurring. Often in this case what will be happening? So in this case the net movement of the substances, okay, fine. So it will be occurring from what? So it will be occurring from the higher concentration region towards what? Towards the lower concentration region. As well as when we are talking about these case means what are actually the concentration. So you are very clear about that means in this case we will be having the solute solvent like mechanism. Understood? So in the case of the diffusion what will be happening? So in the case of the diffusion, the net movement of the substances will be occurring from what? Will be occurring from the, tell me, the higher geographical region or either the higher concentration side towards the lower concentration side. In the third, when we are talking about these cases, so these are known as what? So when we are talking about the case of the diffusion, so these are the physical process as well as in this case the passive diffusion or either the passive process will be employed. As well as when we are talking about these cases in terms of what? In terms of the diffusion. So these are often playing important role in order to regulate as well as playing important role to promote the gaseous exchange with reference in the case of the plant body. As well as when we are talking about these cases in terms of these, so these are literally coming under what cases? So when we are talking about the case of the diffusion, so these are coming under the here meant of the short distance transport. Find here the short distance transport. Here is the short distance transport. As well as when we are talking about the another features as well as the cases in terms of the diffusion. So these are what? So these are the slow process of course as well as these are literally being present in terms of the living forms. Understood very clearly. Now, so when we are talking about the another features as well as the characteristics which are literally being implanted with reference in the case of the diffusion. Now, so the diffusion are literally being affected by what cores or either the things. Now, so when we are talking about the here we of the factors affecting the diffusion. So these are nothing else but the diffusion means in terms of the density. Remember what are actually the density. We'll be understanding about that later. As well as we are often having the membrane permeability or either you could say that the permeability of membrane. Then we are often having the temperature. Then what? Then the pressure. Often we are having here in terms of the another feature such as what? Such as the nature of particles. So we'll be understanding about that in term little later. Now, so let's understand as well as very clearly understood means what are actually the factors which are literally affecting your diffusion process. So these are the density, then the pressure, often the concentration gradient, often the nature of particles, often the here in terms of pressure as well as what, as well as the temperature. Remember very clearly as well as understood about that. Now so when we are talking about these case, means what are actually the another parts, or either what are actually the types of your diffusion. So these are often being further divided in terms of the two broad categories, such as what, such as the simple diffusion, then the facilitative diffusion. Now so let's elaborate as well as understand about this in terms of the detail. So when we are talking about these, means what are actually the simple diffusion. So in this case what will be happening? So in this case the movement of the substances will be carrying out or either employed in terms for what? So the movement of the substances will be taking place across the membrane. So you are very clear about that, means what are actually the membrane. As well as when we are talking about these cases in terms of the diffusion process, so these are literally being employed in terms of the plasma membrane. Now so another one of the features in term, means what are actually the simple diffusion. So in this case what will be happening? So in this case the net movement of the substances will be employed or either taking place from the higher concentration region towards the lower concentration region. Of course very clearly understood. As well as when we are talking about the another cases, so in this case what will be happening? So in this case no any energy input from the cells are literally being required. Of course understood. So we did not require any of the internal amount of the energy which could support this process literally in terms of what, in terms of the simple diffusion, just like we are having the ATP, means what, the adenotriphosphate. As well as in this case in terms of the simple diffusion, the proteins are literally not being required. Understood? Now as well as when we are talking about the another features as well as the characteristics, what, in terms of the simple diffusion. So this process will be literally continued until what, until the process of literally when the equilibrium will be existing. So the particular time when the equilibrium will literally start to exist, then this process of the simple diffusion will literally stop. As well as when we are talking about the next features in terms of the simple diffusion, so your simple diffusion are not being selective in what, selective in nature. Now so this is somewhat when we are talking about the case of the simple diffusion. On the other hand you are often having the facultative diffusion. So now let's understand about these, means what are actually the facultative diffusion. So in this case the transport protein are playing important role for what? So in this case the transport protein are playing important role to promote the movement in term across the membrane. So when we are talking about, means what are actually the proteins. So you are very clear about that. So protein are what? So protein are the larger molecules, rather the macro molecules of what? Of the amino acid. Just like we could say that the amino acid will be what? So just reverse the process. Means if protein is the macromolecules of the amino acid, then it is conceptual that the amino acid should be the micromolecules of your protein. Now as well as when we are talking about the protein, so we are having many kind of the protein, literally around 100